The Sino-U.S. trade war has been ongoing for over 6 years, and despite former President Trump, who is poised for a potential return to the White House, threatening to impose new tariffs on China, the situation has shifted significantly. China has effectively adapted to a de-Americanization of its trade, with the proportion of trade with the U.S. now constituting a minimal part of China's GDP. As a result, China appears unbothered by the prospect of the U.S. escalating the trade conflict in 2024. China's trade surplus is projected to hit an extraordinary record of approximately $1 trillion, a development that could be interpreted as a sharp rebuke to the U.S. administration. Concurrently, China's technology sector continues to achieve significant milestones. Huawei, for instance, has staged a full recovery, consistently releasing new products and advanced chips. In contrast, the U.S. seems to be losing momentum in the economic struggle. America's current competitive edge is limited to a few key areas, such as high-end semiconductors and generative AI. However, should China make breakthroughs in these sectors, it would jeopardize the United States' technological dominance. Compounding these challenges is the U.S.'s over-reliance on the global reserve status of the dollar. By excessively printing money to offset economic crises and using the dollar as a weapon through mechanisms like SWIFT, the U.S. has alienated many emerging economies. A growing global consensus on de-dollarization is emerging, even among traditional European allies, who have begun exploring alternatives to their reliance on the U.S. currency. The United States' core problem, however, isn't just its reliance on imported goods from China. Its manufacturing sector is deeply flawed, lacking the ability to produce competitive products. After years of leveraging the dollar to inflate prices, the U.S. struggles to provide cost-effective goods or services. Its economy relies heavily on printing money and issuing treasury bonds to sustain the illusion of GDP growth, a precarious strategy that underscores its underlying vulnerabilities. China has now become the third-largest trading partner of the United States. This shift highlights a crucial point. Even if the U.S. reduces its imports from China, it still relies on alternative suppliers like Canada, Mexico, and Vietnam. However, these countries lack the production capacity and research and development capabilities to compete with China. In many cases, their most viable strategy is to import goods and services from China and resell them to the U.S. Even efforts to develop their own manufacturing industries require support from China in the form of raw materials, components, and technical expertise. This dependency accelerates their integration with China's industrial supply chain. These countries, lacking the technological innovation capabilities of major powers like China or the U.S., and having relatively small market sizes, are unable to establish independent industrial systems. They remain reliant on China's extensive and advanced industrial network. Ironically, the U.S.'s trade war with China has primarily resulted in its own decoupling from China, while other countries have increased and deepened their trade ties with Beijing. China also benefits from its strategic geographical position and massive domestic market. As the world's largest market, China anchors the East Asian Economic Circle, which includes South Korea and Japan, economies that far surpass Canada and Mexico in strength. Moreover, China shares borders with ASEAN, a burgeoning market of 670 million people with vast development potential. Many ASEAN countries are still in the early stages of industrialization and urgently require infrastructure and industrial technology. Until they develop mature industries of their own, they remain heavily dependent on Chinese goods. ASEAN nations tend to prioritize cost-effectiveness over political considerations when making purchases. Chinese PR products, known for their excellent quality, competitive pricing, reliable after-sales service, and lack of political strings, are their natural choice. In contrast, the United States, located on the other side of the world, focuses on exporting conflicts, while China exports infrastructure. This practical approach has strengthened China's ties with ASEAN nations, which generally maintain political neutrality but are closely linked to China economically. Together, China and ASEAN form a vast market with a combined population of over 2 billion, far exceeding the North American economic bloc. The cultural values of hard work and familial focus prevalent in Asia further contribute to the region's economic momentum, making it difficult for European and American economies to compete. This mutual reliance has turned ASEAN and China into each other's largest trading partners, significantly boosting China's foreign trade and reinforcing its global economic position. Now, let's discuss the challenges facing European and American countries. These nations generally have high exchange rates and inflated GDP figures, but they are heavily deindustrialized, with the competitiveness of their manufacturing sectors declining rapidly. To counteract this, Europe and the United States aim to focus on high-value-added industries such as luxury goods, arms, high-tech products, and services. However, internal competition among these countries is intense, and their interests do not always align. This makes true unity difficult to achieve. The Western diplomatic approach often follows a zero-sum philosophy where one side's gain comes at the expense of another's. For example, the United States reportedly colluded with Poland to sabotage the Nord Stream natural gas pipeline, cutting off Germany's access to cheap energy. This triggered a severe crisis for Germany's manufacturing industry, leading to economic contraction. The U.S. capitalized on this by attracting German manufacturing companies to relocate stateside. In contrast, China's diplomatic philosophy emphasizes win-win cooperation and shared prosperity. China invests in infrastructure development across Central Asia, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America, opening factories, creating jobs, and fostering shared economic growth. While the United States extended an invitation to Xi Jinping to attend Trump's inauguration, a break from diplomatic convention that seemed to signal respect, this move was more about vanity. Trump sought to flatter China to gain its cooperation and offset the unrealistic promises of his campaign. The U.S. continues to need China's help on various fronts, from managing the war in Ukraine to addressing drug trafficking issues like fentanyl, as well as buying American agricultural products and energy. Yet, despite these needs, the U.S. refuses to lift its aid sanctions or technological restrictions on China, demanding unilateral concessions instead, a remarkably naive and unrealistic approach. If Trump were open to reciprocity, I would break my own conventions and invite him to my birthday party, a gesture that would certainly show my respect for the United States. But ultimately, such gestures are symbolic, and the underlying dynamics are unlikely to change. Looking ahead, my prediction is straightforward. Trump will likely abandon an all-out confrontation with China and instead focus on exerting pressure in specific key areas. Countries that followed the U.S. in imposing blockades on China are likely to face economic hardships, as Trump views not only China, but also these allies as having undermined U.S. interests. He will likely demand trade concessions and increased protection fees from them. China, on the other hand, is likely to make some calculated concessions to appease Trump, while strategically addressing those nations that once acted against it, such as France, Canada, and India. The message to these nations is clear. It's time to reassess your position, as the window for doing so is rapidly closing. If you enjoyed this video and found it insightful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Until next time, stay informed and take care. Thanks for watching.